89.87, made an intraday low of 89.95, and the index, well, it briefly broke below that 26,000 mark, has somehow huffed and puffed its way back above the 26,000 mark as of closing. Of course, the banks were the key contributors to the downside, but it was the broader market picture that also remained the same. The advance decline ratio as well, the market breadth has been concerning, and that has been the trend over the last few sessions, Reema.
Indeed, about 900 stocks advancing today for about 2,000 stocks which ended in the red. So the mid-cap index was down about 0.2%, but the gap between the two, advances and declining stocks, was fairly wide. Let's tell you what we've lined up for you on our show today. We start with the top movers and shakers. Upasana joins in. Rupee, that's the big story, inching closer to 90 against the dollar. We'll get you the key reasons behind the decline. Asian Paints, top Nifty gainer after UBS raises the target price by 52%. And Bajaj Housing Finance's 2.3% equity block deal hurts the stock. And finally, we'll tell you the big events to watch tomorrow.
On to our first segment of the day. Upasana is here and she will list out the big movers from today's session. Upasana.
Well, certainly the banking stocks remained in focus today as NSE revised Nifty Bank Index. Hence, Yes Bank and Union Bank to be included in the Nifty Bank with effect from 31st December. Hence, we saw Union Bank, Yes Bank in focus. Union Bank saw an up move of about 1%, Yes Bank an up move of about 1%, but ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank is likely to see the reduction in their weightage overall. Hence, even these stocks remained in focus. And lastly, coming to Bank of Maharashtra, the government to divest 5% stake in the company via OFS. It has seen a fall of nearly about 0.1%. Now, next, moving on to the defense stocks, they see a correction, entire defense pack. The BEL, GRSE, Data Patterns, MTAR Tech, they saw a correction of about 1 to 4% in today's trading session. Now, let us look at the key newsmakers in today's trading session. Spark remained in focus, up nearly about 20% as US court rules in favor of the company. HCC also remained in focus with a sharp up move of 10% as the company releases 1,000 crore right issue details with a price of 12.5 and record date of December 5 is what the company has indicated. MV Photovoltaic Power, which is the first, released its first Q2 numbers after its listing. It was a strong set of numbers, strong growth on a low base. EBITDA up nearly about 4.3 times and margins saw an up move of 1,200 basis points. Bajaj Housing saw a decline of 7% as promoter Bajaj Finance sell 2% stake, and Websol Energy also remained in focus with a sharp up move of about 6.5% as it saw a biggest single day gain as the company signs MOU for PV ingot and wafer manufacturing in India. And lastly, let us look at the key stocks that hit 52-week high today. Asian Paints on the back of the UBS upgrade, Union Bank and Jamna Auto. So all in all these stocks were in focus today.
Upasana, thank you for that update there. Now, shifting focus back to the key talking point over the last two sessions, that has been the rupee. There's a new record low against the dollar, inching closer to the 90 mark now. The currency has declined nearly 4.5% year to date. Lata is now joining in. Lata, what is the reason behind this steep fall?
Well, first the numbers, 89.50 overnight. And now 89.95, so pretty close to the 90 mark, about a 40 paise fall or a 0.4% fall. Could become even a 0.5% fall. The slide is, the reasons are not new. The reason why the rupee has been the worst performing currency and why it has fallen with some accelerated pace since mid-November are both the trade deficit and the capital outflows, the capital account deficit. From November 18, the fall has accelerated because that day we realized that the October trade deficit is $41 billion, which means the US trade deal is now beginning to bite. The fact that the trade deal was not signed all through November has kind of accentuated tensions or at least worries within the exporter-importer community as well. And those who have open positions or those who had to buy dollars, importers, are now rushing in to buy, which explains the accelerated fall in the rupee. What we hear from dealers today is that the Reserve Bank doesn't appear to be supporting any level. It is just, graduating the fall so that probably a market-determined cheaper rupee will correct the current account deficit, the trade deficit to some extent. It will make the Indian exporter more competitive, and it will make imports more expensive and thereby protect domestic industry. So it's just allowing the rupee to find its level, but only graduating that fall. An important positive that many dealers pointed out, or at least a few dealers pointed out, is that it's not the Reserve Bank alone which is supplying dollars. Closer to the 90 rupees per dollar mark, even exporters, others are supplying, giving the impression that the market itself feels that things have gone far enough. So the hope is that around the 90 mark, the rupee will have seen a bottom, at least for the near term. But who knows, I could be speaking too soon.
Lata, thank you for that update. And the big stock talking point in today's session was Bajaj Housing Finance. Of course, the block deal that took place, promoters being the sellers, 7% lower on the stock today. And it's been this much talked about IPO when it came out last year. Bids worth over 3 lakh crore that were received. A very stellar listing. The stock made a post-listing high of close to 190. But from those levels, the stock has halved in the next 12 months. Today made a 52-week low of 95 rupees. Now, you took a look at the block deal as well. Even today, after the promoters ended up selling around 2.5% stake, they still have close to 86% stake left. So, in order to be compliant with the minimum shareholding norms, they still have to pare down stake further. Now, mutual funds don't have a significant stake in the company. So, who has it? Other than the promoters, of course, it is the retail shareholders. The retail shareholders at the time of listing were around 17 lakh. And as soon as the stock made that post-listing high of close to 190, retailers continued to pile into that stock. By December of that year, it was at 26 lakh. Even now, it's at 24 lakh shareholders who have close to 8% stake in the company. So it is retail and the promoters who have a majority stake in Bajaj Housing. The overhang, of course, that is that big one, right? The promoters looking to sell stake further. When does that happen? Of course, that will be determined as time will tell. But that will remain an overhang on the stock. It is now nearing its IPO price of 70 rupees. And the bigger worry is that the fact that the promoters are selling shares when the stock is at a 52-week low. So they have to be compliant, they have to sell shares, and now when the stock is correctably the casualty of the day, 7% lower on the stock, and still the big promoter overhang still remains.
Okay, let's get in Jay Bala. He's been with us from Closing Bell, and Sudeep Bandopadhyay, Chairman of Indie Trade Capital. Sudeep, is Bajaj Finance, Housing Finance, after the fall, a 50% fall from the top, attractive enough or not yet?
Well, Rima, not enough. I think still it's about 4-time book. And a housing finance company at 4-time book is definitely, you have to be very, very careful. And here you have to also consider the fact that the promoters will have to further sell shares to pare down the stake to the 75% level. So I think it's better to wait and watch. If the promoters are able to do deals with funds in a manner that it doesn't affect the market price, well and good, but it's a matter of future. We don't know what's going to happen. In any case, the valuation still is kind of rich.
Jay, if the charts have enough data, it was almost around 15 months now. Important levels on the downside that you'll be watching out for on Bajaj Housing?
What is clear from the charts with the limited data is that it doesn't seem like it has bottomed. It's probably got at least a sequence of lower lows and lower highs to come through. And the momentum is strongly with the downwards price action. So I wouldn't venture to get into bottom fishing on the stock. But when it comes to it's a related stock, Bajaj Finance, that could have short-term dip, but the medium-term looks bullish. So I would say I would extrapolate that and maybe arrive at a conclusion that Bajaj Housing has probably got a short-term bottom, which could be turn out to be a significant bottom even for the medium to long term.
Short-term bottom perhaps in place technically, but fundamentally, Sudeep is not convinced. Stock could head lower. There is more supply coming. But let's get to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Mastek promoters are planning to sell nearly 20% equity at a premium of up to 25%. Rachna is now joining in with the details.
That's right. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 that the Mastek promoter group is exploring the sale of nearly 20% stake in the company. Now, this is significant because the promoters currently hold about 36% in the company. So, the sale being contemplated is definitely way more than just a routine dilution process. It could meaningfully reshape the shareholding structure. What's also noteworthy is the pricing. Now, people in the know say that the promoters are seeking a premium of up to 25% over the current market price. Now, what we also understand is the timing of the sale has two big triggers. First is succession planning, and the other one being a broader effort to bring leadership stability after a year of major top deck changes. And that's important context because Mastek has been through a transition-heavy year. The company appointed Umang Nahata as the CEO effective January 2025. The finance function has also seen back-to-back leadership shifts. First, there was Raghvendra Jha, who became the CFO in May 2025, and then came Deepak Kedia, who took over as the CFO in November 2025. So the potential stake sale is being viewed by many as a part of a larger reset, the one that aims to give the company a steadier foundation as it leans into its next phase of growth. Now, according to sources, the promoters are sounding out a mix of strategic investors and long-only institutional funds. That aligns with Mastek's revenue footprint, where nearly 65% of the business comes from the UK and Europe. Now, Mastek was founded by Ashank Desai, Ketan Mehta, Radhakrishnan Sundar, and the late Sudhakar Ram. As always, we did reach out to the company for a response, but Mastek declined to comment on CNBC-TV18's queries.
Rachna, thank you for that exclusive news break. Sudeep, earlier when promoters used to sell stake was a matter of concern. Today we live in times when promoters selling stake, well, it's all right. The recent sentiment impact, and then we get on to business as usual. So your call on Mastek, if you have one, and the general mid-cap IT space as the beneficiary of the weakness that you're witnessing in the rupee currently.
Well, almost, I think as far as Mastek is concerned, it's going to be a management change. So I won't be surprised if it gets followed up by a public offer. So a lot of interesting things, corporate action is expected in the counter, because if promoters are selling 20% out of their 36%, obviously they are seeking a 25% premium. That implies management change. I'll watch this space very, very carefully as far as Mastek is concerned. And it's very difficult to take a call on Mastek at this stage. So I'll kind of stay out of it. We know that a lot of their business does come from UK public services and government contracts. There has been some challenges because some other large Indian IT companies have won some of the contracts which used to be with Mastek earlier. So there is a bit of a concern. And some amount of management change probably is good for the company in the long run. As far as IT companies are concerned, we do like the travel tourism focused technology companies. So RateGain Technologies, Coforge, and the likes. We also like, the automobile transition, EV to IC to EV transition oriented technology companies, whether it's Persistent Systems, Tata Technologies, and the likes.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Moving on now to another big mover, Spark, Sun Pharma advanced research company, hit upper circuit after the US District Court ruled in favor of the company and granted summary judgment for Sezaby priority review voucher. Ekta joins in to, uncomplicate that.
Well, yes, Spark has been in focus in today's trading session, seeing significant upside. This is because the US court has granted a summary judgment in favor of the company. Now, the judgment is in favor of a PRV on the drug Sezaby, which the company has in its portfolio. Now, PRV stands for Priority Review Voucher, which is basically a transferable certificate which is granted by the US FDA to companies for making drugs for neglected diseases. So it is basically an incentive for developing drugs that might not be as profitable. So what exactly is this particular priority review voucher? It allows the company to get a faster 6-month review for another drug application. And remember that they are transferable. So companies can sell or license them to others for a larger sum of money. So the court had held, that FDA's withholding of the PRV was contrary to the law, and that's the reason why Spark has now gone up. Sezaby is basically Spark's injectable drug, which is used for neonatal seizures, and it was granted orphan drug status by the US FDA, and Sun Pharma also has marketing and distribution rights for this particular drug in the US markets.
Ekta, thank you for that update. A 20% upper circuit for Spark. in today's session. Sparkling indeed. And Asian Paints was the other one that saw a late surge in today's session after UBS upgraded the stock to neutral from its earlier rating of sell, and the brokerage also raised its price target by as much as 52% to 3,200 rupees from the 2,100 rupees target that it had earlier. Now, UBS has highlighted that Asian Paints' volume growth in the second quarter was very strong, and the second half of the year is expected to remain as strong as well. Now, we spoke to the company's managing director and CEO Amit Singhal, who said that the firm is witnessing a surge in demand with rural markets showing a clear sign of a comeback. Listen in.
Even now, while you are seeing some shoots in terms of the demand, we are not seeing that there is belligerence, there is full exhilaration coming into the market to that extent. We feel that today the rural markets are just coming back, even the urban centers are just trying to show some spark. I feel that possibly it will take some time before we really get on to the parameter of really double digits and so on and so forth.
How long will it take?
It's very difficult to say, but I would say that possibly another 2 quarters is something we need to kind of watch out for sure in terms of what we are looking at. So therefore, right now, I think the whole peg is in terms of saying that we continue to grow higher than the market, and that's the pitch in terms of what we would take.
And you haven't been doing so for the last few quarters, and now you're confident of doing that, right?
The first 2 quarters of this year, we have grown higher than the market to that extent. And as you look at the H1, we have grown much higher than the market overall.
So you will continue to gain market share?
That's absolutely.
Get into a break on that note. We'll come back with the top corporate voices and the big events to watch tomorrow. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. On to some top corporate voices from the day gone by. The founder and chairman of the Wockhardt Group, Habil Khorakiwala, told CNBC-TV18 that the company expects US FDA approval for its antibiotic Zynic by the mid of next year. The group anticipates global peak sales of anywhere between $1 to $2 billion, with 40% expected to come from the US markets. Remember, just yesterday, the US FDA accepted the new drug application for Zynic.
Shree Cement is also gearing up for a strong year ahead. Chairman H.M. Bangur told CNBC-TV18 the company is on track to meet its full-year projection of over 36 million tons, with the all-India market share being steady at 9%. He added the EBITDA per ton is expected to be around 1,100 to 1,200 rupees, with H2 matching H1 levels. The company plans to use its cash flow for the 80 million ton capacity expansion. He further added that North India volumes may dip, but other regions are witnessing growth.
And before we wrap up on today's edition of Markets Forward, here are some key events that you need to watch out for going into midweek trading. Upasna is standing by with just that. Upasna.
Well, first up, let us look at the global economic cues coming to US first. Industrial production data will be out. Now, coming to Japan, Hong Kong and India, all these three counters will be reporting their S&P Global PMI data. So we'll be keeping a close eye out on that as well. Bank of Maharashtra will be in focus as the OFS for retail investors open tomorrow. Now on the IPO front, Meesho, a 5,500 crore IPO opens for subscription tomorrow. Aquis IPO, 921 crore size, opens for subscription, and also with their wires, 300 crore IPO opens for subscription as well. Now, looking at the other data, the most important RBI MPC meet is tabled for tomorrow. The three-day monetary policy meeting begins on 3rd of December, and the final decision will be out on 5th of December. So all in all, looks like quite a powerful day tomorrow.
Thank you. And that brings us to a close in this edition of Markets Forward. We'll be back with more news and updates on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
and welcome to Business 360. I'm Ritu Singh, and here are the headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The Indian rupee remains in free fall, hitting a fresh record low once again. $1 now costs nearly 90 rupees. The rupee is down 4.5% since the start of this year. Sensex and Nifty declined for the third straight day in a broad-based sell-off. Heavyweights like Reliance, HDFC and ICICI Bank lead the decline. Mid-caps fare slightly better, but the index ends in the red. Bitcoin suffers the biggest single-day decline in 7 months as the sell-off intensifies. All cryptocurrencies are under pressure as investors fret over a new crypto winter. Bitcoin is down 30% from the record high in October. Telecom Minister Scindia defends a decision ordering smartphone makers to preload the state-owned Sanchar Sathi cybersecurity app. The minister also says users will have the option to disable or delete the app if they wish to do so, dismisses concerns over snooping or mass surveillance. Smartphone makers are not in favor of the government's directive on Sanchar Sathi app. Industry sources ask why their feedback was not sought and why the Ministry of Electronics was not consulted. Phone makers like Apple, Samsung and Google have no history of preloading apps mandated by the government. Lok Sabha proceedings are disrupted for the second day in a row. The opposition lawmakers raised slogans demanding a discussion on special intensive revision of electoral rolls underway in multiple states. U.S. President Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff to meet Russian President Putin in Moscow to discuss the Ukraine peace deal. The White House says that the Trump administration is upbeat about a deal to end the war. Russia claims that its forces have captured 2 frontline Ukrainian towns. And the death toll in Sri Lanka in the aftermath of the cyclone, it crosses 400 rupees. Close to 3 lakh people have been displaced. 750 people have been killed in floods and landslides on Indonesia's Sumatra Island. Over 3 million have been affected. Well, the Indian rupee continues to fall, hitting another record low against the dollar. The currency is inching closer to the 70 mark, and it has declined nearly 4.5% so far this year. Lata Venkatesh joins us now. Lata, start with the reason behind the steep fall and if 90 is now imminent.
The reason why the rupee has been the worst performing currency and why it has fallen with some accelerated pace since mid-November are both the trade deficit and the capital outflows, the capital account deficit. From November 18, the fall has accelerated because that day we realized that the October trade deficit is $41 billion, which means the US trade deal is now beginning to bite. The fact that the trade deal was not signed all through November has kind of accentuated tensions or at least worries within the exporter-importer community as well. And those who have open positions or those who had to buy dollars, importers, are now rushing in to buy, which explains the accelerated fall in the rupee. What we hear from dealers today is that the Reserve Bank doesn't appear to be supporting any level. It is just, graduating the fall so that probably a market-determined cheaper rupee will correct the current account deficit, the trade deficit to some extent. It will make the Indian exporter more competitive and it will make imports more expensive and thereby protect domestic industry. So it's just allowing the rupee to find its level, but only graduating that fall. An important positive that many dealers pointed out, or at least a few dealers pointed out, is that it's not the Reserve Bank alone which is supplying dollars. Closer to the 90 rupees per dollar mark, even exporters, others are supplying, giving the impression that the market itself feels that things have gone far enough. So the hope is that around the 90 mark, the rupee will have seen a bottom, at least for the near term. But who knows, I could be speaking too soon.
Well, from the currency markets, thanks, Lata, for that. From that market, we'll move on to equities, where the last week witnessed a broad-based fall and ended the day lower for the third straight day. More than 35 Nifty stocks have ended in the red, with heavyweights leading the fall. The Sensex dropped more than 500 points, while the Nifty shed more than 140 points in trade today. Now, the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has confirmed that the general tariff rate for South Korea will be brought down to 15%. This is going to be effective retrospectively from the 1st of November. The announcement has come after South Korea introduced a legislation in the parliament to implement its strategic investment commitments. Now, in a social media post, Lutnick said that the move will unlock full benefit of South Korea's trade deal with the U.S. South Korean auto stocks rallied on the back of this development. And speaking of trade deals, the United States and Britain have now announced a deal to secure zero tariffs on British pharma products for at least a period of 3 years.